Happy to be with you again. Anyway, never mind. So we just wanted to do a little recap. So we'll get brought up to where we are today. So we have talked about, last week we talked about this thing of our core values and for lack of a better word, why did my mind just go blank? Just flew right out. Mission statement, and for lack of a better term, but it's this thing where, where we talked about intentionality, and for us to be turned toward another and have intention, there has to be a goal, right? There has to be, and it's an ongoing goal. Just so you know, we never arrive in this journey. It's like our journey with God. Like it just continues to grow and evolve and grow and evolve. And even after being married 43 years, it can still be like, I didn't know that about Carl or whatever. So we go, or those things change. So we talked about intentionality. And the only way that we can be intentional about this relationship, and I'll take it, I know we aren't talking about parenting, but I do believe it is in that broader family unit as well, is to have some core values to be able to kind of point in what you do as a family in this direction so that you're upholding your core values. And it keeps us from getting distracted from all of the shiny things that might come our way that might not really be for us or our family. Looks great, looks awesome, but it doesn't really line up with the direction that this relationship is going in or this family is going in. So that's kind of a recap. Intentionality, big, very big deal, very big deal. We have to be intentional. Our marriages don't just happen. They don't just happen. They actually have to be worked and intentional. Happy work, not striving work, not ball and chain work, right? But it's work that we are working in together and moving toward these goals and mission statements or core values, whatever you want to call them, that we have. So we gave you an assignment. Did you want to say anything?
No, you're good.
So we gave you an assignment at the end of last week, and that was to take the week and come up with your 5, and it could be more than 5, but if you had to start with 5, that's a good starting point. And then come up with your own mission statement, realizing, like I thought it was really important what Melissa said, is that, they had a mission statement, if you will, however many years ago when they had children, but now it's just the two of them. It was just such a good point that she made. It's like they had these goals, they had this intention, they had this, and now, wow, she's grown to a place, right? And Andreas is going, yes, 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 but it makes their relationship look different. And so they've got to kind of maybe take another look at those core values and that marriage mission statement that they have. So how did it go? We would love to have interaction. Oh, sorry. We'd love to have interaction on this part with, like, how did it go? All of you talked about, in some way, shape, or form, growing together and also growing individually. That is awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Us old farts, we had to learn that one. So good.
Our breakthrough is your breakthrough. So
there you go. There you go. All right. Anybody else?
I want to say one thing just about
Okay.
what we're doing here. It's a kind of a theory that I'm working on, so I'm happy to state it as such. But I believe every relationship needs fallback points. And to me, what you guys are doing right now is you're creating fallback points. You're creating, when things go crazy, I've got a fallback that I can go back to. When I don't get Vicki, when I'm like, I don't understand what you're even talking about right now, we get in this, if we get in this place of disagreement or disconnection, where I start to think the crazy thoughts, I know I have a fallback point. I think this relationship, by the way, mine and Jesus, has fallback points. Like there are places where I can go back to and go, no, I know this is true. No, I totally believe that I'm convinced of, like I can go back to my fallback point regardless of the swirl of the crazy. And I think every relationship needs fallback points. I think friendships actually need fallback points. What you guys just created were your fallback points. You're like, when everything goes crazy, if everything goes crazy, you've got places that we can return to and where we can say, no, I know this to be true. I know this to be true about this person. I know this to be true about this person. I know this to be true about this person. Like, it's important that we have these things. It's important that we have fallback points. I think, again, my friendships, we actually have fallback points where even if like, you believe that? But I have a fallback point where I can drop back and I can say, I know that this is true about this person or this person or even my children. Like, I know this to be true about them. I know this is who they are. These are the fallback points. Another beautiful thing about this is that this exercise forced you to come together. And I love that. I think you're going to hear that a lot in everything that we say. It all has to do with coming together. It all has to do with, what's right for us to do. Well, you're going to have to come together. It's the coming together that the relationship is solidified. It's the coming together that is the beauty, I think, of the whole thing. And we always want to do things that are going to force us to draw together. And again, that's the strength of every relationship. It's your ability to come together, to solve problems, to come together, to ask questions, to come together, to make decisions, to come together, to resolve conflict. This is a beautiful thing. I could say this is the will of God. This is the will of God for us, that we come together. We come together to work these things out. And of course, there are times when, we need counsel. I get it. And that's beautiful too. But the counsel should always lead to the coming together. That's what I think I want to say about that.
Okay.
That was a good word.
It was a good word.
It was a good word. Do you want to shift gears and start talking about agreement?
Sure.
That's a nice segue. So we're gonna talk for a little bit about agreement. And again, it's this divine coming together. Now, we like to talk about this. People come often to me and say, "Hey, we've got this situation. What do you think we should do? We need to make a big decision about a job or about a promotion or about a potential move. Like, what should we do? What should we do?" And for us, we always go back to what I just said. I'm going to put that pen down. We always want to lead people, kind of like press people into, there's no right or wrong decision here. It's what the two of you agree to do. Big things, little things. We talked about this, I think, in session 1 with submitting to one another. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Again, this is two people coming together. What do you do when you reach a T in the road and you have to go either left or right? How are we going to make a decision? Well, the key is that you make it an agreement. The key is that you two decide together whatever it is that you're going to do. We use the example, and this is absolutely true, that when we've come to a T in the road and we can't decide, we will say, well, we're not in agreement. So let's put this on the back burner, knowing that sometimes the clock is ticking, knowing sometimes you have to, hey, they need to know by Friday or whatever. We get that. But if we're not in agreement, we really don't want to jump into something. I never want Vicki to feel like I had to be really kind of clever in getting her to see it my way. Like, that just always felt really slimy to me. And we've all felt that, right? Okay, if you're honest, everybody's been slimed by that. Well, I know the way we should go, and it's my way. It's the not your way. That just always felt really like, and besides, we've done it my way enough, and I've gotten us lost in the T. Oh, we'll go this way, and only to find out, wow, how wrong I was. So I've gotten the family lost several times driving the big blue station wagon. My girls can be like, they're like, oh, we were in the way back when Dad was lost in the big blue station wagon of life. That's actually an analogy, but it's actually true. It's an analogy that really happened. Anyway, I don't want to get us lost. I need Vicki's perspective, and she needs mine. I mean, when we do this class in person, I often have people like, hold your hands out, like you lose it in the camera angle. But if I hold my hands straight out and look ahead, I can't see my fingertips. Like I have to move my hands into about right here. Like it's less than half of my field of vision at any one time. All I'm saying is at any given moment, there's more that I'm not seeing than I am.
I want you to do it. Put your hands out. We can do it so that you can see. Put your hands out as far as you can and wiggle your fingers. Look straight ahead. And then bring your hands in to where you can see your fingers.
In your peripheral vision.
In your peripheral vision. And you'll see that there is more behind you that you can't see than there is in front of you that you can, right? Right?
That's a good picture.
So it's a really good picture of this whole agreement thing, because the one person cannot possibly see everything. They have a limited field of vision.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just makes sense that if I'm with this person that I really do love and I really do trust and I really do believe, Andreas and Melissa's like, I really believe this person, then, and also add to it the fact that she sees life differently anyway. Like she just sees, not all other analogies aside, she sees life differently. And I need her perspective and she needs mine. Like we together actually could be really powerful in decision making, in the stuff that will affect us. So we purposed long ago to not make any decision unless we were in agreement. Period. Now you're going to say, wait, any agreement? Like, no, just about any agreement. Any agreement.
Any decision.
Any decision. Any decision we're going to make, we're going to be in agreement about. And that's big and little. And the truth is, we wanted to practice on the little before we made the big. All the way down, where are our kids going to go? Where are they going to go to college? What city are we going to live in? To, the simple and the ridiculous, like, hey, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? And I get that, it can actually be a little labor intensive to come together on every little decision that we have to make. But I would rather Vicki say, hey, what would you like for dinner tonight than hey, why do we always get what you want? If that makes sense. Or, why do you not need permission to spend $100, but I do? And, we have had a fixed dollar amount that we're okay with each other even spending. It's grown a little bit in the years, but there was a time where it's just like, no, if I'm going to spend more than $25, let me talk to Vicki about that. Now you may be way above that, but we were kind of po. We went through some seasons in life where we was po, and it's just like, no, I want her perspective, because what if she's doing the same thing and I know all we have is $30 in the account? That's all I'm saying. And so it would be like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Are you okay with it? And I got to tell you, for some people that felt like, wow, you have to get permission from your wife to spend $30? Are you kidding me? It's like, well, no, I really want her perspective. It never felt for me like I was getting permission. I was getting perspective. That's a good word. Mm-hmm. The difference between permission and perspective. I was getting her viewpoint, and I was sharing a need, actually. So to us, agreement and learning to come into agreement so that we never want to give each other the "I told you so" like place. You know, if I am so headstrong, or Vicki for that matter, in what I know is right, and this is what we are going to do, so you're coming with me, and what, at the end, if it goes sideways, she can easily say, "It's your cue.
Told you.
Told you so.
Told you this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Should have listened to me."
Why don't you ever listen to me? I don't feel heard. Again, back to Andreas and Melissa, I don't feel heard. I don't feel like you're listening to me right now.
I want to just interject here. So this is why we tried to build on from week 1 to week 2 and talk about agreement now. Because agreement can be, if not done well, can be a really great tool of manipulation and control. Right? So we've got to get these other things kind of working where we are intentional with one another. I know that I am being heard. We're two powerful people in a relationship together, so that we can, when this brilliant idea happens that Carl has, and I'm like, well, that makes me feel unsafe or whatever, there can be this validating of my feeling, talking it out and working it through, and coming back to a place where we can agree to do or not do, or make some adjustments or whatever it is to move forward. Coming into agreement gets rid of bitterness, resentment. It brings you so that you're talking about things that you might not normally talk about. In the early days of this, and we don't know where actually we got this from. We did it in the early days, and then we found out that someone else was teaching it. So, whatever. But in the early days, if I was at the store with someone and something was on sale or whatever, and it might have been $25, and we didn't always have a budget, we didn't always, because we didn't have enough, which is, I was about to say that, but that's actually a lie. No matter how much money you have, you should be on a budget. But that's for another day. That's for another day. I didn't believe that back then, but I've learned. So anyway, I would call Carl and, say, hey, I've got this, whatever. And I was actually called, I don't know, I might be dating myself, but I was called a Stepford wife. Do you know what the Stepford wives is? Do you guys know what that is? Yeah. So, and all I was doing, like Carl said, is like, it wasn't getting permission. It was like, hey, I know this is a great deal. What do you think about us spending our money on this thing? And we'd get the perspective, and it would be like, we talk it through or whatever, and then we could purchase that. But it could be anything. And what that does is we're now talking, right? I am not withholding. Carl is not withholding, because we've turned toward each other. We're seeing each other's heart. We're listening. We're validating feelings, and we're coming to agreement on everything. And I know it sounds crazy. I do. I really do know it sounds crazy when I tell you that we come into agreement on everything. But 2 of our children are on this call, and I think that they could attest to the fact that thing about, the one child going to the mom and getting an answer that they didn't like, and then they'd go to the dad and try to get another answer. And we didn't play that game. It was, I need to talk to your dad. They'd go to dad, and he'd say, I need to talk to your mom. We didn't play that game. Is that right, girls? I mean, am I saying right? And so it's because we didn't talk about this either, but nothing is going to come in between this relationship. Not even those beautiful, fantastic, wonderful, talented, gifted children that you have. Because one day, those beautiful, wonderful, talented, gifted children that you have are going to leave your house to go spend their life and do whatever it is that they're going to do. And here's what you get. You get this. So you are not in a covenant relationship with your children. Okay? You're not in a covenant relationship with your children. I'll just let that sit there. You are, however, in a covenant relationship with your spouse. So part of this agreement thing is not allowing things to come in between here, right? So we're not going to let that distraction or that disagreement, it's like we're going to be intentional both this way and this way, right? Agreement is, I think it gets easier the more you do it. I think that's a safe way. And I think it also eliminates, you might have arguments during the agreement, but it eliminates, like coming to that place of agreement, but it really eliminates bitterness and resentment and the I told you so. Nobody wants the I told you so. Yeah. Nobody wants that. And just remember the scripture that says when 2 or more of you are gathered. So in this agreement, right, you also have got your greatest, biggest cheerleader leading you on and cheering you on in this whole area of agreement.
Yeah. We taught this class in our ministry school in California. And as we were teaching it, I mean, there was a guy there who was in school, married man, family, small children. The wife wasn't in school, but he was. And as we're teaching it, like he's starting to tear up. And he comes up to us afterwards. He's like, oh my gosh, I have a huge mess to clean up. I dragged my wife out here to California from, back east. And he was
with little children.
He's like, she didn't want to come. I made her come. I told her it was the Lord's will. And she was not in agreement. He's like, what should I do? It's like, bro, you got a mess to clean up. Like you need to go home and make this right. And listen, it was a beautiful moment of like, hey, I did this and I'm sorry. Like the wife at that point felt so hurt. I think they're still here. It was like, but he did it. Like he heard that message of like, oh my gosh, I dragged her to California, like 2,500 miles. The other thing that what we're talking about does is it removes the secret. Mm-hmm. Listen, if things get too big and you have to get permission or you have to, you're not getting heard, what you're going to do is you're going to create a secret system on the side. That's where you're going to get your needs met. And we've counseled people. We have walked with people who have made big life decisions and they never even told their spouse about them. I mean, like cars being bought, like retiring from, I didn't tell my wife because I knew she wouldn't before, but I decided to retire this year. That is like mind blowing to us. That is the opposite of what we're talking about. For us, it would look like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you think? Because we want to be in agreement about this thing. We want to be connected, even though like it might be one or the other's career, it would still be, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Here's what I'm sensing. What are you sensing? And until we were in total, I'm talking like 2 enthusiastic thumbs up, we're not gonna go. We're not gonna pull the trigger. Here's what I can tell you, and this might also sound really cheesy, but I believe God honors agreement. Wherever 2 or more of you agree as to touching a thing. Like that scripture is powerful in our lives. Now, that's not to say that I feel like every decision Carl and Vicki made have just been the right call and life has been like nice little,
oh God,
path of roses. Like sometimes
please don't hear that.
We have made screw up decisions. But here's the crazy thing. If we make the screw up decision together, we can then easily course correct. we're laughing about it, like, well, that was the wrong call. Yeah, oops. But it was never, I told you so. It was like, wow, here we are. And now what are we going to do? And I can tell you, I think that's happened. I think also because we've been in agreement, sometimes God's just like, okay, looks like we're going to take the scenic route. Like he'll get us there eventually, but he honors the two of us being in agreement. He honors that we honor one another. Mm-hmm. He honors that we actually submit to one another. And it takes practice, it takes time, but there's tremendous, I mean, I can't even stress it. Like, the thing that would scare me the most is two people growing apart and having secret lives. And I've done enough marriage counseling to tell you, like, that's a real thing. It's a real thing to say, well, I'm not going to bring this up to her. I know what she's going to say, so I'll just do my secret thing over here. And to me, relationship, there's no parallel. There is no parallel in relationships. They're either growing together or they're growing apart. I mean, it might just be a few degrees to begin with, but if you extrapolate that out, if you follow that out, it's no time before there's a big distance between us. And that is the thing we're fighting against. We always want to do things that are going to force us, I would say, to be together in the decisions that we make. Agreement is huge.
It's huge.
Anything more that you want to say about that?
Any questions about agreement? Okay. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and the better you get at it. So I think agreement is going to lead us into disagreement. So what happens, because if you remember the very first thing that Carl said at the beginning, go ahead. Yeah.
Good relationships aren't defined by the absence of conflict. Now, again, you can have no conflict if you're living two separate lives, two secret, separate lives. Man, we hardly ever fight. We hardly ever come together. So it's a reality that good relationships just aren't defined by the absence of conflict. You can have no conflict and have a terrible relationship. But good relationships are defined by the willingness to work through any conflict, every conflict. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that right now. I want to lead into that, though, with punishment.
Okay.
Is that cool with you?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about punishment and creating punishment cultures. It's one of my big gripes with, honestly, religion, is that religion can create incredible punishment cultures. And in our relationship, we have purposed that we are not going to punish. Now, if I had the time, I could unpack this thing further, but I will say this: because of what Jesus did on the cross, we're not going to be punished by God. Remember, Isaiah 53, the punishment that brought us peace was laid upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Jesus took our punishment. And because of that, you and I are unpunishable from heaven's perspective. Now, let that sink in. Let that sink in for a second, that God's never going to punish you. He doesn't punish. In fact, it's his kindness that leads us to repentance, right? So the punishment that brought us peace was laid upon him. Think about the passage from 1 John. Perfect love casts out fear. Why? Because fear has to do with punishment. Let that sink in for a little bit. Perfect love casts out fear. Why? Because fear has to do with punishment. It's the fear that I'm going to be punished. That's like a religious, control system. A free culture, a connected culture, a relational culture says, no, I can't be punished. I'm not going to be punished by God. So therefore, I'm not going to punish the people in my life. Here's where it gets really real. I'm not even going to punish me. That's real. I'm not going to punish the people who disagree with me politically or theologically or ideologically. I'm not going to be a punisher. I'm not going to bring punishment. Now, it has to be practiced. And it gets practiced probably more than any other relationship right here. I'd say, and also with our children. But we have decided we're not going to punish. Why? Because Jesus bore our punishment. The punishment that brought us peace was laid upon him. And so in our house, we have an agreement that we don't punish. We don't punish. I want to say one other thing too, and I'm sorry, I have to just say this, and it's a little theological, but I'll just bring this out for anybody that's questioning right now. And it's simply this, that God doesn't punish, but he does discipline. And the difference is that punishment looks back and makes you pay for what you did. Discipline looks ahead for where you're going in life. And so even with our children, we actually don't punish our kids anymore. Now, I'm not saying we do this perfectly or have done it perfectly, but this is our heart now. We're not going to punish. We're not going to make our kids pay for the wrong that they did. That's punishment. Punishment looks back. Discipline looks ahead. And with our kids, we know we want to partner with what God's called them to be, with who God's called them to be. And so if there's a behavior that needs to be dealt with, we're going to deal with that behavior. Why? Because we're going to make them pay for what they did? No, not at all. It's for where they're going in their life. We want to see where they're going in their life and know that this behavior might need to be adjusted because of where they're going. And I think that's the way God deals with Carl. Like, he doesn't make me pay for my sins. Jesus did that. What he does, though, is he disciplines me now. Because he's pissed? No. Because I have a call of God on my life. I'm going somewhere. I'm created in his image. I am his workmanship, created for good works. And if there's a behavior that's keeping me from that, yeah, a good dad's always going to deal with that. So having said that, remember, punishment looks back, discipline looks ahead. Having said that, in this relationship, I don't discipline my wife. Just so we're crystal on that. That would go, if she feels that coming, she'll remind me. And what will you say?
I am not one of your children.
Boom. Drop the mic. Like, she's going to let me know loud and clear, hey, I'm not one of your kids. And vice versa, to be honest. But in this relationship, we're not going to punish. And punishment can look a lot of different ways. It can look like the silent treatment.
Speak to the hand.
It can look like, yeah, you know what? No, you don't get to talk to me. I am going to go over here because you don't get to be in my presence right now. And that can absolutely be punishment.
It can be withholding sex.
Uh-oh.
Right? Wall goes up. That's the punisher. That's what I'm punishing. It can be
withholding money, withholding love, withholding affection, withholding time.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's an episode of The Office. I don't know if you guys are Office fans, but Dwight would shun. He was talking about the shade. He would like shun on. He would just like pull the shade down, shun on. To me, that's just like, that's the perfect example of punishment. Like, up, shun on. I shun you. I'm shunning you right now. I'm nothing-ing you.
And remember, this has to stay together. We're not going to let anything come in between this. And so when we punish, we're going to turn our back, right? We're going to turn our back on each other. We're going to, now when we walk, we're walking away from each other. We'll put our shun down. We'll put our shade down. We'll go to bed and, it's back to back with no feet touching, no butt touching, no nothing touching. It's like, yeah, no, sorry, right?
You get nothing.
And it's that break. It's that separation. And that's the intentional part of relationship. And punishment is used, and honestly, I believe it's used unintentionally. It's like, don't talk to me right now. I can't talk to you right now. Guess what? If you come into agreement with your spouse that says, where you say, honey, I need to have a space. I need 10 minutes. I need 10 minutes. And the spouse says, I'm cool with that. Take 10 minutes. That is so different from don't talk to me, right? Like it's this communication. This thing is happening rather than it being a reactive break in the relationship. Punishment comes, like I said, unintentionally. Like, I don't think we think in our head. Sometimes we probably do, but I think there are times when it's like, you know, you're not thinking, okay, I'm going to really punish you right now and, you know, turn my back on you. I just think it's more of a reaction.
Yeah. It's in marriage, it is, 99.9 whatever % of the time, it is a reaction to something that I didn't like. I didn't like that behavior. I didn't like what you did. I didn't like what you said. I didn't like the way that made me feel. So the way I'm going to respond to that is shun on. And it's honestly not a super mature way to handle conflict or disagreement, or, you know, even words that were said. I was doing some counseling this week with an individual, and he made this statement, wow, my fiance actually really annoys me sometimes. She really annoys me. And I said, well, that's the language of someone who's not feeling heard. That is the language of annoyance, is the language of like, I don't feel like you're listening to me. Therefore, this behavior that I'm seeing is really getting to me. And here's the bottom line. We have to make this pact. We have to have this agreement. And this is a biggie. It's a big one. But the agreement is we're not going to punish. We're not going to bring punishment into our family. We're not going to punish our kids. We're, discipline, absolutely. Correct? Oh, yeah. But we're not going to punish. We're going to figure out a better way to communicate what we need than with punishment. Is there any more that you want to say about that?
I don't think so. Any questions about that? Is everyone good?
I love seeing the wheels going. I can see it on your faces. But what about, and how do we have a thing in our house. It's this phrase, how long do you need? Now, we're not talking about arguments exactly right now, but we all go through things that get us out of sorts. But we'll give each other this place, and we'll give each other this question, and it's simply this: how long do you need? Our youngest daughter's majoring in theater, and last summer she wanted a role. She auditioned for it. She didn't get the role, and she was really upset. And she came home, and I mean, tears. She had the like brave team face on during the rehearsal or whatever. But when she got home, that's where reality kind of happens, and she was just really upset, and we were upset with her because I knew how much she wanted the role. But the question came up: all right, how long do you need? She's like, I need 24 hours. We're like, okay. Like she knew that she needed to get her head back in the game. She needed to get back into like a place of reality. Not getting a thing can't crush us. Okay, so how long do you need? And we give each other that. Sometimes it's like, how long do you need? It's like, I need an hour. And we're like, okay, you got it. You want me to set the timer? I'm going to set the alarm. But we do want to give each other that space. So how long do you need is a big thing in this whole deal. Any more you want to say about that?
Nope. I'm ready to move on.
Okay, so we're going to get into then.
Well, I want to. I know as we're talking, it's like I'm sure that you guys are thinking, "Gosh, these guys, they bet you they don't ever fight or have a disagreement because they have all of this agreement in place. And how long do you need, honey?" And all of that. And we just walk around, there's little birds flying in our house, and we have, rose petals on the floor, and every day is just a happy day. It's like a Disney
It's a jolly holiday.
It's a jolly holiday. So that could not be further from the truth. We do have a happy home, but you're looking at two people with very strong opinions. We're very stubborn. and we are quite capable of disagreeing with each other fiercely. And so we have had to learn, because remember, a good relationship is not based on the absence of conflict. So conflict is going to happen. So how do you take the conflict and turn it into a positive experience? How do you turn it into a growth experience? How do you make it where it's part of this relational growth that you're wanting to happen? And that's that willingness, this agreement, if you will, that you're going to work through every conflict. At this ministry that we were involved in for 10 years, we taught on marriage quite often. I remember this one time we were having a doozy. It was a good one. I mean, a great one.
We call it World War III.
And at this ministry, we lived and worked at the ministry. So our room was like right here, and the meeting room was right here, where all of the beautiful people from all over the world, all of the married couples from all over the world were coming. So we learned how to argue like this, so maybe they couldn't hear what we were saying. But we had all the facial expressions to be able to understand that we were pissed. So we were having one of those, hoping that the people in this room weren't hearing us. And I'm watching the clock, and Carl's, not. And I'm like, we have to just forget it. We have to go out here and teach on marriage.
True story.
True story. Carl stands in front of the door. In front of the door going out. And he's like, we're not going out till we bring this together. And I'm like, I'm not going out then. I'm not going out. Eventually, it wasn't long, 5 or so minutes, I guess, we agreed that we were going to be okay, and we'd come back and deal with this after we went out and talked about how awesome it was to be married. God does very interesting things. True story.
True story. I do think it's a dirty little secret in the church, seriously, that everyone fights. I mean, let's just get it out there. Everybody fights. And you might fight in your own way, but the thing that I want to dispel is any idea that, wow, we have a crappy relationship because we fight, because Carl and Vicki never fight, Bud and Mel never fight. Like, just like, get past that. People with opinions, people with thoughts are going to have clashes of thought or opinion, and that's okay. This is it's taking me a while to be able to say it, but I think it's good. I think the fact that we disagree is good. Now, how we handle it is everything. And that's why we want to work on what we call our rules of engagement. Now, agreement has to be in place first. That's why we started tonight with that. You have to have agreement, because it's going to take two people agreeing on how you're going to fight. Because here's what can happen in the craziness, the emotionally charged moment of an argument and a disagreement is you're going to say things that you don't really believe. You're going to say things that you shouldn't say. You're going to fly off and this is Carl and Vicki talking here. You're going to say things that you wish you hadn't said. So for us, it has looked like over the years us creating our own personal Geneva Convention. It's our rules of engagement. It's what we said, what we agreed on, that we're not going to bring into that moment. Now, the beauty of this thing is, as the years go by, there's enough in there that keeps us in a really safe place when we begin to disagree. But we've got our rules of engagement. I think the first one that we ever talked about was Vicki would say,
"You're just like your father."
Oh my gosh. That, I knew what she meant when she said that, and it was not a compliment. I don't know if you ever heard Dane Cook's thing on that. I'm like, my dad was a brilliant man. When she said that I was just like my dad, I knew what she was saying. And she was saying, you don't listen. You have all the power. You're not willing to share anything. You are just like your dad. And that was That was like the first one, believe it or not, I think, to make it on our list.
And what that did, when I would say that to Carl, and I knew it. I knew that if I said this to Carl, it was hitting below the belt. I knew it was my strikeout. I knew it was my knockout punch. And that was going to end the conflict. We didn't resolve the conflict, you understand. It was just going to end the arguing because I hit him below the belt. And so he turned, like he was done, shut him down. And in my opinion, I won. And the truth is, neither of us won, right?
That's real.
Because we ended up with no resolution.
So the things that the things that are going to make it to your own Geneva Convention, to your own rules of engagement, are the things that hit below the belt. Now, the only way you're going to know that is through like duking it out, so to speak. Of course, we're not talking about physical, any kind of physical
never okay.
conflict. Never going to be okay with that.
Never okay. Let's just be real clear. Physical contact, fighting, is never okay.
That should be on
never
the list.
Okay.
Period. But through the years, what made it to the list were things that we were able to then, after the fact, after we reconnected, and we always did, we always have, because here we sit. The things that would make it to the list were like, hey, we need to talk about that, because when you said that, it shut everything down. And so a big one, this is a common one, but a big one is, yeah, if you don't like it, why don't you just leave? Like the divorce card is never an option for us. Like she is so stuck with me. I mean, I could be the biggest, fattest jerk and she's gonna have to that was supposed to be funny. Nobody thought that was funny at all.
Bud's laughing.
Thank you, Bud. That was a courtesy chuckle, but I appreciate it. We don't joke about it. We're in a fight. We're never going to say, yeah, well, I want a divorce. Like divorce literally is not an option. So that's made it on our list. We're not going to leave. We're in this, even though we're having a really emotionally charged moment right now. Divorce is not an option.
Another one that's on there is, this is one of Carl's big ones, is you always or you never. Like when we're in an argument saying you always, if I'm like, you always or you never, it's like he's done.
Always or never statements are never true. I realize what I just said. I know what I said, but it's real. I hear it in marriage counseling all the time. Seriously, always and never statements are they're just not true. They're not an accurate assessment. I get that it feels that way. I can acknowledge that it would feel that way, but it's not true. Always and never statements are a fallacy.
So we just shared some of our rules of engagement. What happens when you are in an argument, a conflict, and it starts out kind of,
a few tremors.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And then it gets to this, we get higher and higher and higher and higher. What do we do? What happens? We haven't crossed over a rule of engagement, maybe, right? It's just gotten smaller or larger, started out small, but it's just grown to this place of, we're both emotionally high, right up here. The stress level is high. And what do we do?
Yeah. So we had it's funny that I call people elderly now. When I refer to anyone as elderly is really interesting when, the gray and when you actually can file for Social Security, you're that now. But we had some mentors in our lives, and they were an older Lutheran couple from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Herb and Dolores. I'll just say their names, Herb and Dolores. And they were the most gentle, couple. We really loved them. And I mean, just this wealth of experience and knowledge. But they were talking to us one time about how they resolve conflict. And this was actually at the place Vicki's referring to in North Carolina, where Sarah and Chris actually live. Anyway, they were talking about the way they resolve conflict. And I think it was Dolores that said, whenever we get into an argument, and we're thinking, you guys argue, like it must feel like, no, they're there, dear. I strongly disagree. Like they were just so gentle. We could not feature them having like a Carl and Vicki duke it out. But they would say, if we get into an argument, one of us will extend our hands, and then the other will grab hands, and we will become unified, one in Christ at that moment, and we will bless one another. And we're like,
and pray.
And pray, yes.
And pray.
And we shall pray. Let us pray. And it felt like really cheesy to us, but we're going, you know what? H&D, if it works for you guys, we're for you. Feels a little dated for us hip and groovy, ex-hippies here. But if it works for you, that's great.
We actually laughed. We laughed hysterically because we're like, can you get any more cheesy than that? Because we're thinking we're up here at the height of an argument and we're going to say, let's pray. Yeah, probably not on this planet. Like not with these two people.
I got a prayer for you.
Yeah, it would be more that. I got a prayer for you. It would definitely be more that. So we're back now in our room, and we're up on the third floor. It was a couple of days later.
Yeah, it wasn't long. It wasn't long afterward. We're having to duke it out.
It was a good one.
And I got to tell you, and here's the truth. Vicki is so good with words. She's such a good communicator. And we're talking about really a battle of words, right? Vicki, 90% of the time, she's going to win our disagreement. Like, because first of all, she's got that super fast, remember, microwave, lightning fast processor. And she just was like, she's good. She knows how to use them words. And we were in one of those moments, and we're at a ministry. We're at a ministry that's helping people in their relationships. And we're having one of them, and it gets to the end, and I mean, Vicki's got that smug, I just kicked your butt again, looks on her face. And the best I have at that moment, and I know she's got me. I know that. But I'm like, I'm going to go full Herb and Dolores right now. And so in the middle of this argument, I stick my hands out. I'm like, okay, what you got? Let's see what you got now. And?
I didn't do anything. I still had the smug, I beat your butt look on my face.
And so I go, second time. I'm like, because I think right now, I see that she's backing up. I see that she's kind of reeling. I don't know how to respond to this. I think maybe I'm onto something here. So I go,
The second time.
Second time.
Yeah. He gets nothing.
Okay. And I'm going, okay, 3's a charm. Third time. I stick my hands out just to see what she would do. Boom. She literally gives me the finger. But I mean, I'm like, we actually might be onto something. And I grab that hand.
He did. So what happened, like I was still ticked off. I was angry. I saw his persistence. I saw his commitment. But we joke about it now. That really, truly did happen. I stuck my fingers in there, but he was quick to grab my hands. He was so quick to grab my hands. And we looked at each other in the face, and it was like a melting. I don't know.
Getting choked up here.
I'm not getting choked up, but
Let me get you some water.
I think here, I'm good.
Nasty cold coffee. Okay.
But we looked at each other and it kind of stopped the crazy. You know what I mean? It stopped the crazy. And we looked at each other and it was like, oh no,
I see you.
I remember you.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's bring it down, because nobody is making any sense when you're up here. It's all irrational garbage when you're up here.
I mean, we've literally never had an intelligent argument in 40. Seriously, I mean, this is really smart what we were saying right now.
And so we were able to pull it down, get to a normal tone. I actually think we agreed to sit for a time, and then we came back and we resolved the conflict. However many years later this is, 30, I don't know, 25 or whatever, Carl doesn't necessarily put his hands out again, but now when we are having an argument or a disagreement, one of us will put our finger out, we always want to reconnect, right? There is this reconnection that happens physically. So one of us will put the hand out, and I'm just going to tell you guys, 9 times out of 10, it's Carl. He's the one that is going, let's make sure we're back together. And somehow that unifies us, body, soul, and spirit, right? And we're able to look at each other, take care of the disagreement, and move forward. It's all about connection. If you don't have your rules of engagement in place, and you don't have this, on the trains, you don't have the emergency stop, which was this, you're going to go off into who knows where. You're going to turn from each other. You're going to begin walking this way. And can I tell you, it's always harder to turn back. The longer we stay out there, it's harder to turn back. And so conflict is actually, I think it's a very intimate thing. The full cycle of the conflict is the intimacy that happens when you come back together, when you've been able to have conflict without hurting each other. That's what the rules of engagement are for. Because oftentimes without the rules of engagement, the conflict starts many times with a hurt feeling, and then we just keep hurting each other, right? So we're just building hurt upon hurt. And so with our rules of engagement, we're stopping that hurt upon hurt. We've got an emergency brake, and you don't have to use our cornball one, but it's out there. You come up with your own. You come up with something that when that conflict gets up here, you've got an emergency brake somewhere. Whatever that is for you guys. This is what we use. We still use it differently, but we still use it. It's kind of morphed a little bit, but it's important because the end result of all of this is that you come back together stronger because of a resolution. There's been a resolve. You've been able to hear each other. You've been able to get in there and work through this thing and come back together and look at each other, look each other in the eyeball and say, oh yeah, I remember you. Remember those core values? I love you. I honor you. I want to watch you grow, and I want to watch us grow together. Just remember, a good relationship is not based on the absence of conflict, but the willingness to resolve any conflict.
Yeah. Now, this is one of those topics that we can't give you this assignment. I can't say, oh no, here's what I want you to do this week, guys. Get in a real, get in a good old, fight and then that won't work. Here's what I want you to do though. I want you to keep it in your head and in your heart. if you do get into a big disagreement and things come up that shut you down, that you begin to formulate as a couple your own rules of engagement. Now, again, it would feel really artificial to me for you to do that just thinking stuff up. You can try it if you want, but I'm not gonna give you that assignment, so to speak. It should be more organic. I want it to come up as it comes up. Ours was formulated over years, and things have kind of, come on the list and dropped off the list, to be honest. Like, they're just not issues anymore. Because here's what I know. I don't want to hurt Vicki. And I know that in an argument, in a fierce argument, I'd say I've said things that hurt her. And I never wake up in the morning, we talked about this earlier, thinking, how can I really hurt this woman that God gave me? Like, it's never in my heart or in my mind. Like, I really don't want to hurt her. And it really bothers me that I have.
Do you want to talk about your hand on the door?
Yeah. So that's in our hearts. There's been times where Vicki's hurt me, and I can tell you, I know that's not in her heart. She doesn't want to hurt me. I don't want to hurt anybody, for crying out loud. I think that's like what the love of God being shed abroad in our hearts is. Like, we just don't want to hurt people anymore. I definitely don't want to hurt her. And it bothers me that I have. It really bothers me that I have said things that have hurt her. So I don't want to continually keep stepping on her toes. Even if it's unintentional, I don't want to keep stepping on her toes. Going back again, we're all over our timeline here, but going back, gosh, Sarah and Melody were little at this phase. Vicki and I were in an argument. We were in the Oakland Park House, girls. I don't know if you remember that. But Vicki and I had gotten in you guys were asleep. We were in a World War III. And because Vicki, I said this because she's so good with words. I mean, she really honestly had the upper hand. She was way better at this than me. And sword fight, she's like, like I'm like this bleeding guy in the corner there. She just sliced me up, and she knew that she did. Like, she knew, because she's just better at wordplay than me, that I'm sitting in the chair with holes poked in me. I'm bleeding out over here. And she's like, well, I guess and she puts her sword in her sheath. I guess I'm going to bed then. And she walks down the hall with this little victory, wave behind her. She totally took me apart. I'm sitting over there bleeding in the chair. And it's nighttime. It's time to go to bed. I'm like, I'm not going back there. I'm not going back there where that woman, God, that you gave me is. I sat there in my misery. I sat there in my pain and my defeat. And in that moment, I begin to ruminate I'm thinking about how that went. And you guys do this, right? Everybody does that thing where you think, oh, if I had it to do over again, here's what I would say. I would totally say that now. I wish I could replay it and go back, because I would say that now and I would have her. So I start doing that. And I'm like, well, if I said this, then it would force her to go there. And I think I go through this Bobby Fischer chess match where I'm going, if she does this, I could say that. And if she does that, I would say, I'm sitting there in the chair and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I got her. I think I can win this thing. I think I'm going to use words. She's better, but I think now I've got the strategy. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to give her the what for. I'm going to finally win this argument. And so I go down the hallway. I'm thinking, I know. The evil laugh. I've got her. And true story, guys. I walk back there. I'm going to go in the room. I'm going to give her both barrels. I'm going to tell her what it's about. And I put my hand on the doorknob of our bedroom. And here's what I hear. Be careful. That's my daughter in there. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. But Lord, but God, I have her this time. But I think I've got her. I think I can actually win one of these, God. He's like, be careful. That's my girl there. Now, I'm the father of daughters. 2 of them were asleep across the hall from our bedroom. I knew what he was saying. Like, I knew I know what it's like to be a dad of girls. And it's just like, nobody better not ever. Right. And I'm getting now this perspective from heaven going, oh crap. This is a princess in the bed there. This is the daughter of the king. Oh man, I'm going to give an account for what I say next. I'm going to give an account for what I do next. And so now with my hand on the doorknob, like it's just there the whole time, like, oh crud, I thought I was going to go back and win this thing. And even in that moment, realizing that no, she's a daughter of the king. She deserves like that respect. She deserves that honor. Now, in fairness, I'm a son of the king as well, right? A princess and a prince in this relationship together. But I'm thinking about like even the core values that we heard earlier, like there was so much honor and respect in them that even when I think I'm right, I have to do it with the heart of honor toward a daughter of the king. And she has to do it with a heart of honor toward a son of the king. Like it's this mutual respect. It's just like once the clarity comes, you're like, oh man, I'm in this with royalty. I'm in this. I'm engaged in a battle right now, but it's with royalty.
And this is why learning how to fight, have conflict well is so important. You know, to say that you don't have conflict is really denial. Like it just,
gonna happen.
It's going to happen. I don't care who you are, it's going to happen. But when you've got some safeguards in place and you've got the heart that is toward your mate and you've got the realization that no, daughter, son, right, of the creator of the universe, in the image, made in the image of God, put together, right, said that I do between each other and invited God into that. Like there's intentionality and purpose.
Yeah.
And the rules, you know, it's a guideline. They're guidelines. They're what do you call them? They're rails. Yeah, you know, they're rails on the road so that you guardrails so that you stay in a right place with each other. The one thing we didn't say that I think is really important, you don't make your rules of engagement during the conflict.
Yeah. Right?
You wait until everything calms down and puts it in there. You may have one in your mind right now. I did. I knew if I brought up Carl's dad, I knew that was below the belt. I knew it. I knew that it would stop the argument. I knew it. Like I didn't have to wonder about that. And I think that's when Carl's saying you might have some of those, but don't try to figure it out. Just be aware. Yeah. Just be aware of those things and let them play out very naturally and organically.
It'll come.
It will. It will come.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned through the years, and I'm just going to give this to you now, is that when we put things back together, a really powerful question is, what did you need from me in that moment?
Right.
What did you need? And we talked about need, I think, week 1. It's really okay to have needs. It's actually powerful to have needs. It's powerful to admit with this person that you have needs. But, you know, we're fighting because of, you know, offense or, you know, hurt feelings or smashed toes. But try as much as you can when you put it back together to hear and even ask one another, tell me what you needed. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you need. What did you need in that moment? Because I really want to give Vicki what she needs. And she really wants to give me what I need. And sometimes I don't even know what I need. But just by her asking, it's like it forces me to give language to a thing that was previously just a feeling, but now I need to articulate. What I really needed in that moment was for you to listen to me, or for you to honor me, or for you to respect me. It's going to boil down to these real foundational stones, foundational needs that we all, every human being needs. I just didn't feel heard. Okay, then there it is. And there it is. And as we begin to work through conflict, the conflict actually becomes less intense in nature. Mm-hmm. We joke about it. We say we fight all the time. And the truth is we actually don't. We used to, but now we still fight way less frequent, way more honoring, way more, okay, tell me what you need.